Good morning, good morning, good morning. It is 5:30 in the morning on a Tuesday morning. We are recording 5:30 in the morning on a Tuesday morning. That means it's time for the random object from the Random Object Randomogrifier. It's time for Sketching and Coffee Live. This is the time of day where we pull a random object from the Random Object Randomogrifier and we draw it. Just going to spritz these watercolors. Want to make sure that they're nice and juicy, moist. We want to make sure they're moist when it comes time to use them. Today's toy from the toy box, random toy from the toy box, random object from the Random Object Randomogrifier, is a penguin. It is an African penguin. I'll give you a minute. We're going to play a little game. I'll give you a minute to figure out where you think the African penguin might be in the world. I will eliminate for you. It was not in New Zealand or Australia. So take a minute and just try and imagine where you might think the African penguin might be. And if you said Africa, you would be right. It is an African penguin. But the reason that's funny to me is because, and I'm probably the only one on the entire world that thinks it's funny. The reason that's funny to me is because this thing is almost exactly the same as the Humboldt penguin that we did a couple of weeks ago. And the reason being is they're suspected to be the same species that got isolated from each other. And so they have a lot of similarities. They have a few differences because when populations separate, they begin. Inbreeding is not really the right word, but their genetic diversity goes down. So it's kind of like inbreeding. The inbreeding is not really the right word that they like to use. But their genetic diversity goes down, and they become a little bit different than each other. They start having minor differences. Like this little character right here has spots on his chest, and the spots are like fingerprints. They are different than any other penguins. And so he's got that kind of difference, but otherwise, I mean, seriously, otherwise the differences are really not that much. They're not that distinct from the Humboldt penguins. And if you put them together, they will interbreed. And they will interbreed in the wild if they are put together. They will interbreed in zoos. Zoos have to make a special effort to make sure that they are kept apart. Because if they don't, the genetic integrity of their stock will go down, and part of the purpose of the zoos is to create breeding stock to reintroduce them into the wild, so that we don't completely lose the wild populations. That is part of the zoo's mission, and so they want to make sure not to allow them to interbreed so as to keep the population pure, if you will. And that's a horrible way to say that. We must keep them pure. No, it's horrible. But accurate. Horrible, but accurate. But they separated from each other. The population separated from each other about 3 million years. Between 2 and 4 million years ago, they separated from each other and started developing these differences in patterns. But they both still have this mask. They both still have this pink patch over their eye, which in the African penguin, they point out that it regulates body heat. They use to regulate body heat. They don't say that in the Humboldt penguin, so I don't know if that's true for them or not. I don't remember there being a pink patch on the Humboldt penguin, to tell you the truth. And this model does not have pink. It has the puff over the eye, but it does not have pink. But in most of the photographs, and that's one of the struggles we're going to have, is in most of the photographs it does have the pink. It has all the usual natural predators. It has, you know, seals, whales, seagulls eating its eggs, other birds of prey eating its eggs. It's a warm climate penguin, like the Humboldt, exactly like the Humboldt. It's a warm climate penguin. The area that it's in is just off the coast of South Africa and the islands there, which is not warm by our standards, but by penguin standards, it's quite warm, quite the vacation spot. And it's kind of been their downfall, because it's estimated that there were some 3 million birds or more at their peak about 70,000 years ago. They've been in slow decline ever since then. Ever since 70,000 years ago, they've been in slow decline. And we can tell that because they nest in the guano on the islands, just like the Humboldt penguins do. And so there's layers where we can count back the layers, and we can see the good years and we can see the bad years. And so we can see that there were some really good years, and then we can see that there were some bad years where the numbers really just diminished dramatically. Can't talk, farting. But back to what I was saying, since the Ice Age, these guys have been in decline. Since the receding of the Ice Age, these guys have been slowly going downhill, and it's mostly because of the warming. Because of the warming trend, the other animals are coming out. The other seabirds are showing up. There's more seals showing up. There's more of the other animals that will eat their young showing up. And so they're not having as many offspring, and they only have, you know, 1 or 2 offspring a year. So they're not having as many has been an issue for their replenishment. Yeah, my mom asked in the chat if their adversaries were the same as the other penguins, and yeah, it's the same. It's the same general culprits. Out on the open ocean, it's the whales and the sharks, especially because they're in the warmer climate. There's other animals, and because they're close to the shore, there's sharks and things they have to deal with. But killer whales. But these guys, the interesting thing to me was that this is another animal that's going through the same thing that, like the if you'll remember, the panda dolphins. You know, we did the Humboldt penguins a few weeks ago, but we also did the Commerson's dolphins, the panda dolphins. And panda dolphins have the same thing going on with their genetic diversity, they have two pods that have been isolated. There are 4 different types of penguin like this in this family that are isolated around the world, and they all have distinct differences, and they will all still interbreed with each other if given the opportunity, but they don't get the opportunity in the wild. Their genetic flow has stopped between each group because of the isolation. African penguins can't really get to the west coast of Chile. So they don't interbreed in nature. They don't often come across each other in nature. They do sometimes. An animal get blown off across the waters in a storm, and that's a long ways to go. But you know, it happens. I don't think that it has happened in a very, very, very long time, and by that I mean 20,000 years. But their mitochondrial DNA suggests that they've been mostly separated for about 3 million years. Let's get some indigo going here so we can have some nice shadows. I don't like to use black for shadows. I like to use black sparingly. So let's just make sure we've got the right amount of shading on here. May find out that that's too dark, but if you use, my mom asked in my ear why I use black sparingly. If you use too much black, it will dull it down, and it's hard to make the darkest things dark if everything is black. You want the black things to be blacker than the shaded things. And if you use black for the shadows, then you can't get blacker. So like their feathers are super black. And you want to make sure that they show that. So where the black feathers are in shadow, that shadow should be blacker than anything else on the page. That part of the shadow should be blacker than anything else on the page. Same with white. If you use white all the time, if you use white in everything, then the things that are supposed to be white won't appear white. And so it's important not to use the blackest black for the shadows unless you're shading something that's supposed to be black. But you know, I started asking the question. I can't tell if the chat's changing, if the cameras are changing or not. So I'm gonna jump start them there. But one of the questions I asked was, humans left Africa several times. They didn't just leave out of Africa once. They didn't leave out of Africa just once. They left out of Africa several times. And you had one group go all the way to the east to the Asian areas, and then you had one group went all the way north into Europe, and then you had another group press even further east and make it into the Americas across the Iberian Peninsula. You had a group make it into the Americas, and then they were all isolated again on at least three separate occasions. Humans left Africa and got isolated, and so there was every chance that this exact same thing that happened to Commerson dolphins and where I started to paint that pink, that patch over the eye is supposed to be pink, and I know that patch over the eye is supposed to be pink. And I started to paint it pink. That wouldn't have been accurate to the toy. Anyway, the exact same thing that happened to the Commerson dolphins, the exact same thing that happened to these various penguins, could easily have happened to humans. Because we separated, and if we'd have separated long enough, we might have actually done the exact same thing, where our genetic changes would have been so vastly different between us that we wouldn't recognize each other as potential mate partners. So I mean, we weren't separated long enough, but we easily could have been. It's only because of advancements in the shipping industry that we managed to discover our indigenous Americans, because we had lost them. There was no recovering them. Once the glaciers receded and the waters rose, there was no way across, no natural way across from Asia to Alaska. No safe passage around the north, so there was complete isolation. So there was every bit of possibility that it could have happened to humans also. But it didn't. Now see how the blacker areas, when the camera comes back down, you'll see how the blacker areas read blacker, because we didn't go with pure black the whole way. There's not really a whole lot of other color on this thing. It is interesting that anytime I want to show you something in particular, the camera is in a very different spot. I'm going to add some, can't breathe arting. I'm going to add some texture. There should be some texture right here. My mom's in the chat room. Can't breathe arting. Because this isn't rubbery skin. these are feathers. They have a little bit of texture. So I'm going to add it in right here with a very fine pen. Ivy is going to be so mad at me. Maybe I should dry that just a little bit. I think I will. I'm going to dry that just a little bit. Ivy won't be mad. You know, Ivy shows up just for the hair drying. Probably been sitting in the section. And I'm sorry, folks. If you're watching and you're not chatting, I can't see you there. I don't know why they won't show me that you're there. If you don't drop a chat line. But if you are there, I'd appreciate you dropping a chat line and let me know you're there so I can at least say hi to you. There. That way Ivy gets some paint drying. All right. What time is it? 5:51. We're doing really good today. It's good because it's a Tuesday. Tuesdays, I have a meeting that I have to attend at my day job. So I have to be done exactly on time, preferably a little bit early. So there is a little hope for these guys. These guys, like I said, they've actually been dwindling since the Ice Age. But once we started sailing and we found them, we caused them some problems too. We are not without our faults when it comes to declining species. This little guy, for instance, we scraped the guano. They live in the guano nests, and in mining the coasts and the islands off the coast of Africa, we strip mine. We just went and scraped the beaches bare. We just went and scraped the beaches bare, and in doing so, we completely removed their nests, their nesting habitat, and opened them up for predation. And their numbers began to dwindle even faster from the 1800s, when there were what was there, an estimated 2 million down to 20,000. There's somewhere around 20,000 members now. And we quit harvesting guano 100 years ago in Africa. They made it against the law. The naturalists and the scientists and conservationists, there's the word I'm looking for, conservationists got together and made it illegal, had laws passed to make it illegal. And still, at least there's nobody trying to eat these things because they taste fishy and oily, and they don't do too well with that. It's their biggest problem right now is predation, and they don't reproduce fast enough to overcome their population decline. But we have, as people, we have started breeding programs where we're breeding them and helping to in zoos and stuff and helping repopulate. We have care programs where if there's an infant found without a mother, we raise it and and then release it back into the wild. They dress like penguins to make sure these things imprint on the penguins and not on the humans. We're building nest boxes to put on the beaches so that they can have more protection because the guano is still gone. But they're still in decline. Even after all those practices, they're still in decline. So, that's a sad thing. But they were in decline before we got involved, and then we got involved, and then we got involved and pushed them a little further. But they're still declining. Maybe there'll be some turnaround. Maybe we can bring them back, or at least stop the decline. But anyway, there is my version of the. Let's do just a little bit more of this. There is my version of the African penguin. The South African penguin is labeled a South African penguin. It's also called a jackass penguin because it brays like a donkey. So it's also called a jackass penguin. All 4 of the subspecies of these things bray like donkeys. Dun, 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 dun. Okay, so there's my version of it. Let me show it to you from my perspective. Start by turning this microphone off. If I can find the button. And we'll stop the recording and we'll safely eject. And we'll take a picture. Dun, 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 dun. Okay. Nope, that's not what I wanted. That's not what I wanted. Technology. Wow. Okay. So there it is from my perspective, which is not much difference in the photograph. My drawing's probably somewhere in between. That's what I did today. The little girl is on vacation in Oklahoma, so I have to pull my own eggs out of here. Let's see what the egg is for tomorrow. Tomorrow we have, it's a bighorn ram. It's a bighorn ram. It's not a goat. I know we had somebody in the chat the other day that wanted me to draw a goat. It's not a goat. It's a bighorn ram. So bighorn rams, what we're going to do tomorrow. Tomorrow is Wednesday the 23rd. So if you're watching this on Wednesday the 23rd and it's before 5:30 in the morning, then you're watching the trailer. And this is what we're fixing to draw. Just stick around. We'll get right on it. But for the rest of us, it's time to go to work. Yay! We have finished another episode of the Sketching and Coffee Live show. I do appreciate this. This is something I look forward to every day. I jump up out of bed and I run downstairs and I have accountability to do my art practice, and I get to art with my besties and we get to talk about cool things. Be sure and tune in tomorrow, same Artistic Biker time, same Artistic Biker channel, and we dance. We dance until somebody says they see me dancing, because when they say they see me dancing, that means that the lag has caught up to the stream, and if the lag is caught up to the stream, then when I click off, I won't click off mid